Carroll Shelby now in the lead. Car number 98. The 3-liter Maserati burning up the course. Car number 11, Johnny Von Neumann in second place. And Richie Ginther, car number 190. The 3.5 Ferrari in third.
All turns. Watch 56 for obstruction. Watch 56.
It's 1190. He spun out right behind the bales. I couldn't see the number on the car.
Moving very, very fast. Johnny Von Neumann right behind Carroll Shelby.
Pebble Beach was almost like a storybook. Beautiful scenery, just the smell of all those trees, and everything's so pure, it seems like. I think that's what I remember Pebble Beach.
Pebble Beach was always a racetrack that we always looked forward to because it was rather prestigious and a wonderful venue. There was no question that the king of the racetracks in Northern California was Pebble Beach.
We've got the fire truck on an escape road at 6.
Keep him there and tell him to stay there.
Okay.
Keep him there and tell him to stay there at turn 6. Hold him there.
Hello, somebody lost a wheel on 6.
Is he all right? Did he flip?
No, he didn't flip.
Good.
Pebble Beach has grown to be world renowned, but in the beginning, it was a glorious, beautiful place to go racing.
Anybody associated with sports cars would have been at Pebble Beach.
50 still in the lead.
The smells at Pebble Beach, the smell, the feel, even the rain time was beautiful, and driving around there, it's still quite like that now. But back then it was stunning. It was a world apart from the rest of the world.
The crowd was pretty huge all the way around the track, probably 3 or 4 deep, maybe 10 deep, along the snow fencing that would keep the cars out of the crowd.
And I mean, people were crossing the track while it was going on.
Pebble Beach course was surrounded by huge, what they call soft pine trees. And I can assure you that the only soft part is the first 1/4 of an inch of the tree. After that, it gets really hard.
The very wealthy folks were there even without the racing, but they came out for the races in their beautiful cars.
I thought there was a lot of people there. And of course you could walk around in the forest and get pretty near the racetrack and see the action, and that's the kind of thing we did.
Any young kid that had a part-time job could buy himself a used car, fix it up, and go racing.
When you think about the fact the first race was 1950 and how that event, Pebble Beach, evolved over the next 6-7 years, and how it gained national publicity and in some cases international publicity, it meant so much to the sport in terms of expanding the awareness of sports car racing. It really was the foundation of sports car racing on the West Coast because it persisted. Then it led to the point where it was recognized around the world.
My neighbor had a XK120M, and he walked over to the house one day, apartment, and he said, you want to go to the races up at Pebble Beach? And I said, what's that?
Before World War II, there was very little road racing in the U.S. Most of it was on circuits, tracks, and the big race, of course, was Indianapolis. After the war, some of the soldiers who had been in England found MGs. The MG had come out with a new car called the MGTC, and some of the guys were able to bring them over. They were very different from American cars, which were big and kind of clunky in those days. Road racing in the United States started in 1947 at Watkins Glen. They had pretty much yearly races after that. 1954 was the last time, and they built a Watkins Glen race course, which is still in one of the major road racing courses in the U.S. now.
There was a young man by the name of Sterling Edwards living in Beverly Hills who was a very accomplished pilot, which put him under the immediate wing of General Curtis LeMay and the Pentagon. And within 3 and 4 ensuing years, they became so close, and they found out they had cars in common. And when the war was over, everybody went their own way. At this same time, in this 45, 46, there were half a dozen young men in Boston thinking they wanted to formulate a body with which they could enjoy and preserve sports cars. When they finally got themselves a legal entity, the Sports Car Club of America.
Now that they had a real core group of road racers that wanted to see this not only continue but grow, they were constantly searching for more venues.
Curtis LeMay went to his peers at the Pentagon and convinced them that they could withstand the probable liability of running race cars on a government airport.
In the area, there was an abandoned naval airfield north of San Francisco called Katati. It was still abandoned. It had been used by midnight drag racers and kids out there just having fun. And the SCCA took it over, and it became kind of their de facto home because they had control of it.
General LeMay was a real character. He had a Cadillac car, and he set it up so we could race on sack bases.
Katati is typical of airports, flat, featureless, not a real hospitable place, very few creature comforts.
It was very casual. People would put together a race and we'd all go paint the numbers on our car and do the race, then take them off and drive home.
I think it was, the attraction was first to race the cars anywhere they could, and obviously the attraction for people to watch these up-and-coming drivers as they were at the time.
Just imagine trying to race through Golden Gate Park now by going to San Francisco and saying, "Hey, we'd like to have this place closed for 3 days, and we're going to bring 100,000 people in and have probably 300 cars, and I don't think anybody will get killed." It was just because Curtis LeMay had gotten his nose in the tent that it sort of salved all their concerns.
The people who had been to races on the East Coast said, no, road races. And roads go through all kinds of terrain.
Sterling Edwards was very sensitive to the fact that we needed to find a place to race.
Sterling was a good friend of mine and also the family.
Sterling Edwards was a classmate of Jack Morris, the owners of Del Monte Forest, in college. Jack Morris had ideas of building homes in the Del Monte Forest, so this was a natural way to promote potential construction of new homes.
My brother John Morse, he liked the idea. My father did not like the idea because he thought someone would get killed, which of course they did.
Dear Mr. Fund, it is a pleasure to give you all the information we have to date on the proposed road race at Pebble Beach, Del Monte Properties, California. This should easily be a national event one day. Hoping this letter gives you enough information regarding our current West Coast activities, I remain sincerely. Sterling Edwards, February 10th, 1950.
So they continued to look to venues that they could rely on from year to year. One of the key movers behind this was Shell Cavalli. Shell, being the MG importer, was the primary source for race cars of that era, pre-1950. And the MG Car Club of Northern California was the main vehicle in which events were organized and promoted.
Shell was more a race organizer in those days. He'd gone to Watkins Glen earlier and saw how the SCCA could put on a weekend event, and it needed some organization, the California one. So Shell organized the event, and with the help of my mom, and Mom was sort of the owners club representative for our import company, and Shell put on the races.
Shell Cavalli, who was so active in Northern California region. A terrific guy and great organizational skills.
Sterling Edwards and Bill Breeze were customers of my dad, and they had bought MGs, and they were part of the MG Owners Club, and they knew the Morse family down in Pebble Beach, and to go down there and try the 17-mile drive on for size.
I remember Dad telling me a story how he went down and met with Bill Breeze and over lunch on a napkin drew out the layout for the course. And after lunch they hopped in a car and they went out and drove the course, and that was going to be the first Pebble Beach road race.
First they were going to use 17-mile drive and their various configurations, and finally they settled on the course, which revolves around the polo grounds.
And designed the course. I think I was in the spring of 1950.
So in 1950, the first race was held.
This was a prestigious event. You wanted to go there and you wanted to win.
It was all out racing. We truly enjoyed it.